had to unmute myself there. Hi, everybody. My name is Yolando. I'm on the community engagement team at MAPC. And I want to be here to just share some resources and support with you all for moving forward with engagement during these times. And yeah, social distancing is in effect, and some of you all want to move projects forward, and there are ways that you can move them forward and engage the public. But I also did hear a lot of concerns and pushback that you've already have been dealing with in your own municipalities. I just want to dig into that first before moving into the presentation. So maybe a few people can tell me about the pushback that they have been dealing with. Why is that? And what's the fear and concerns that you're hearing? And you can unmute yourself to share that, or you can add it in the chat section, and and we can read that out loud. Okay. Think Danielle.
Sure. Thank you. So I've heard a real mix of things. We had to have one planning board meeting early on when this all first started. We were the very first public meeting that North Reading had in the, using Zoom. And so everybody was really, eagerly anticipating seeing how it all went. It actually went off pretty well. And I think that most of our board members were comfortable with it, but we had one board member in particular who really felt he was really uncomfortable with it. And so much so that it just reminded us that even if most people are really kind of okay with it, if one person really is struggling, that could be representative of other people maybe in the audience. Maybe 90% are fine, but maybe there's a 10% that we don't really know about. This one member had trouble with the audio, which we didn't even really realize until after the meeting was over. And to be honest, I think it's fine for a tool to get us through, but I really would be hesitant to start large new projects this way. Anything controversial, we really just took care of very essential business and 2 A&R plans that didn't have public discussion anyway. But to really involve the public, I think the discussion has really been, okay, we know we have one controversial project coming in for our planning board soon. And we know that there are a couple of elderly abutters who we assume, and we've heard from them too, they're not very comfortable with technology, and there's just no way they're going to be able to participate if we go ahead that way. So I think our feeling is it's great for certain applications, we're very comfortable using it for certain kinds of things, like the end of our open space plan, where we've allowed for very significant public input already. But for something new where we might not be able to count everyone, it just doesn't feel right.
Mm. Great. Thank you for sharing, Daniel. Any other people who have different concerns that might be they're dealing with, or want to echo what Danielle said?
It looks like Emily from Beverly has something to share.
Yeah, hi. So we've been working through our public meetings. We've been using Google Hangouts rather than Zoom. And for the most part, it's gone off without a hitch. No major issues. And I haven't heard specifically from any board or commission members that they've had major problems, or from any members of the public that they've had some major issues. Of course, we haven't had any contentious projects. The one thing we have been working through, we're at the tail end of our master plan process, and we were planning on presenting our final draft with some minor edits that we would do after the last community workshop or meeting. And of course, we aren't able to have that community workshop at this point. It would have to be a virtual thing, and we've heard from 3 of our planning board members that they're really not comfortable approving a plan that hasn't been able to go to a broader public meeting where in-person engagement is feasible and you don't have to use technology. We do have a number of, we have a significant older population. I know personally a few members of the community who do not have computers and who have participated heavily in this plan. And so how to reach out to them and how to make sure we have a thorough participation process to where we could approve the plan if needed, and what we can do if we need to wait would be helpful.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, so you all are going to have to use a bit of your discretion in what's happening in your respected municipalities in regards to how you want to move projects forward. But we want to share some resources with you that could encourage engagement in your projects if they are moving forward, and might just keep people involved in process, or if they're looking for information about prior projects to share their input in this moment where they are at home. So like saying that now, like if you do have another concern that hasn't been shared or other pushback that you have heard, feel free to add that in the chat and we'll monitor that as I go through this presentation. And I just want to share some resources with you all. So give me 1 second while I share my screen here. Okay, should be loading. Great. So Alex also shared this presentation in a PDF format. So if you want to, go through the presentation on your own end at your own speed, feel free to, use that PDF instead of the slides that you'll see on your screen right now. But there is one section of the presentation where I encourage you all to participate and go back and forth with me using a polling feature. And that will be a link that I am sharing with you right now. I'm just gonna drop it in the chat section. Okay, so that's just something to have on hand for later on. So you can either text in to respond to the poll or visit pollev.com/MAPC. But again, my name is Yolando. I'm a part of the Community Engagement Division at MAPC. I'm just one of a few other folks who are on the team who specifically focuses on engagement. We think about engagement both in person, but also digitally. Emily, who is the Assistant Director of the Department of Strategic Initiatives and oversees the Community Engagement Division, is on the call with us today too, and she's also a resource for you after today. If you have any questions or concerns or anything that you want to talk about in regards to engagement in your own municipalities, you can reach out to either her, myself, or another member of our team. First and foremost, we just want to start off with a little icebreaker, something fun. I would love to hear what you all are thankful for specifically today. And you can do that by going on pollev.com/MAPC or texting MAPC to 22333. So feel free to text us and let us know what you are thankful for. And it should populate right into this presentation that you're seeing in front of us. I'm going to give people a few minutes to respond. This will also help us to prep for participating in the poll in the rest of the presentation too. I'm thankful for some sunshine, and I'm plugging that in myself right now. Okay, so we see people putting stuff in. So a bike, sun, planners, leaders, sunshine, leaders, abilities, crisis, maybe able to deal with the crisis. So sometimes when you put in a longer sentence, certain words float to the top. So that's probably just showing you that a lot of that is on people's minds. Technology, people's towns in general, And I see roads, health. Great. Thank you everyone for responding to that. Yeah, I just wanted to get us started in that way in using this polling feature. It's called Poll Everywhere. You can use it on your for your own plans. And it's something that people can respond on whatever devices that they have, and it will populate right into your presentation. Okay, I'm just gonna move on to the next slide here. Sorry, there you go. So first and foremost, we know that this COVID-19 situation is impacting engagement in general. Most likely your municipalities are prioritizing public health communication. So that's the top priority. There's mandated social distancing by multiple levels of government, and that social distancing is not allowing people just to convene and talk and connect on projects. Like people are just becoming more engaged using technology. So there's a bit of a cultural shift that's happening. Some people are just becoming more familiar and more okay with using technology to engage in public life. And then there's also mass use of these digital tools just to connect socially. But there's a lot of fear and anxiety that people are dealing with in regards to this public health emergency and in regards to where we go from here. And then people also have just a limited amount of digital attention or mental bandwidth that they can deal with. So they're probably getting bombarded with information from all over the place, and they only have so much time and capacity. So that's also something that COVID is impacting. And then there's some disinformation that is surfacing online, and some tensions and privacy concerns that people are worried about. And then equity is always something to keep in mind, but this whole digital engagement is kind of stirring up some equity concerns that you've already mentioned in regards to like people who might not have access to technology or who are not really tech savvy. It's creating a little bit of a barrier for them to engage on different projects. So this is ways that we know COVID-19 is impacting community engagement. And what I'm hoping to share with you all today are some solutions and some strategies that you can use to, create a more robust engagement like process for your projects using digital tools. And these are tools that I think you can continue to use after this moment in time. As some have said, there are now new people who are engaging in digital life and in our projects. And these folks maybe weren't participating prior. And hopefully there's almost a norm that's been created where people can participate in planning after this, using some of these digital tools and solutions that we're all brainstorming now and using. So first and foremost, if you all can just tell me how you feel about public engagement in regards to this COVID-19 with social distancing in place. I know some of people have already shared what they're hearing in their communities, but think about how you personally feel about public engagement during this COVID-19 situation. So you can just click on whatever face that you see in front of you. 2 people so far have responded with the more moderate looking face.
Yolanda, this is Emily. I have a quick question. Would people need to go to the website, or can you do it just on this slide?
So they have to go to the website. So if you have your phone on you, you can go to polyev.com/MAPC, or if you want to do it on another tab on your computer, or you can text that number I shared with you prior. So it's texting MAPC to 22333.
Ilando, hi, this is Margaret from Wenham. So I just have a suggestion that before you get into your presentation, maybe you could explain to people that they're going to be doing this polling, and because honestly, I don't know how to do it right off the bat. So I couldn't get on the first poll, and I, I do have to claim I'm not 30 anymore. So, and most of my board members, honestly, are closer to 80 years old, and they do well with certain things, like the Zoom is very easy. You just click on it and it comes up. But once I'm in Zoom, then to have to pull up another tab or things, I know it, for most people, it's quick, it's intuitive, it's easy, but I'm kind of at the point, I'm like, well, I'm just going to not answer because it's going to take me too long to figure out how to do it. So I think that's a challenge that I've had too, using technology. And I know some of my board members also.
Yeah, thank you for flagging that. I think that's all things that we want to hear so we can flesh out some of these different tools and ways that we're engaging the public. I think there's going to be a lot of learning that's going to be happening in this whole process, and some of the learning is going to have us make some mistakes along the way, and seeing some of those barriers and then addressing and pivoting afterwards. If you are having issues with just getting onto PollEV, feel free to add that, like, your response to the chat section right into Zoom. So that might be you can just use the smiley face, or you can create, I don't know if you know how to create your own smiley face, but just using like the your keyboard.
Smiley faces.
Yeah, so you can do a smiley face, a frown face, or a moderate face right there in the chat, so we can see where people are standing in regards to how they feel personally about public engagement during this time.
Okay, I'll go on to PollEV on my phone.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah, so if you just pull up your either one of the browsers on your phone, it might be Safari, it could be Chrome, or maybe you are using Firefox or something like that.
Yeah.
You pull up one of those browsers, you go to pollev.com/MAPC, and you will be able to respond to this poll here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I will give you about a minute or two. It looks like most people are in the middle, I would say. So it's 6 people with the more moderate face or like straight face. There's now 7 people with the more straight face. And then I would say 3 people with a little smirk, and then 2 a bit of, a little frown, but not like completely upset, but just maybe a little sad, or I don't know how I feel about public engagement right now. All right, we'll say 10 more seconds if just to respond if you haven't responded. Okay, great.
Just want to point out that this is also a time where we're kind of experimenting with these different tools to kind of see what works, what doesn't work, so that way we can incorporate and pass that along to you all as well. So thanks for your thoughts, Margaret.
Great. So that's just a good pulse check that we want to collect and we want to understand, so that I know how to best share some information with you today. So digital engagement is something that you're going to have to nurture. It's something that you're going to have to build community around going forward. I don't think it's something that just by adopting the right software that you will have everything figured out, or that you create the right link or landing page for your project and everything's going to be smooth. Unfortunately, it's going to require time, energy, and capacity from your municipalities to nurture these digital communities so that people can participate in projects and plans. Now, again, it's an investment that you're making right now, but that investment, I think you will see some results in the long term. It's a lot there's a lot of younger folks who are interested in creating community in that way. And then there's pushback from older generations around, just wanting to engage in the more traditional fashion. So it's something that you have to deal with, and you have to nurture and support those who might have more difficult time right now using some of these tools. But in the long run, I think it would help your municipalities in general to get more public input on your processes. And again, there's a lot of people being bombarded with information right now, and they feel a little overwhelmed. So just keep that in mind. And I think one big piece of that is normalizing people's like fears, anxieties, like what is going on in the moment in time, checking in with folks at the beginning of your meeting, letting people share out how they feel so that they are working stuff out together. So it's not something to shy away from or to not address in your own maybe Zoom calls or on your online engagement experiences that you're trying to create, but lean into it and allow these conversations and feeling to surface so that people can work on them together. There's many different forms of digital engagement experiences that you can create. And I'm going to go over 4 forms that you might see very often right now, and that many people are utilizing, and that we strongly encourage you to at least experiment with at this moment in time. The first form is what we're kind of doing right now, which is the live online meeting. It's usually 2 to 20 participants. You're probably having these live online meetings using Zoom with your own in your own municipalities. They're typically like open so that people can have conversations, so people can unmute themselves and they can comment in the chat section. The limits are more like on the back end, the settings are more so that people can participate more freely. So this is a format, if you are convening with different boards or committees, it might be a format that you utilize and that you leverage. The webinar event is a format for 20 to 300 participants. It usually has one main content person and then some other staff who might be chiming in, but a lot of the back-end settings make it so that other participants are not speaking, so they're all muted, and they are more observing and collecting information, and maybe they might respond in the chat section if that's something that you want as a feature that's open to them. But yes, it can be something that you have chats open, and it can also be live streamed on other social platforms. It can be on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. And it's an opportunity to convene a large group of people to just learn about a process or a project and to have some input, but not as open as maybe a smaller convening of folks. The webinar event can also allow you to break people up into different breakout groups if you're using a tool like Zoom. Some other tools don't have that capabilities at this moment in time, but I definitely encourage you, if you want to convene a large group of people around like 100, 200 people, and then you want to break them up to have smaller group conversation, look into using Zoom to do that, because you can have breakout groups. And then what you probably have used prior, but you can build it out so it can collect more public input, is just a regular old-fashioned landing page. But you can build out your landing page so that there's content that has a personality and has some human elements embedded into it. So it might be that there's a presentation or video that is embedded into that landing page that has you presenting information. That landing page might also have a comment section that people are responding to what's being shared in the presentation, and people might comment on the project and plan using a survey tool that's embedded like Qualtrics. So this is an example that we have used at MAPC is the Municipal Vulnerability Plan for the town of Plymouth. So you can visit that section of our website, and you can find everything that you need to participate in that project. And there's a video of one of our planners going through different elements of the plan, and people can comment to that video on YouTube. They can also share their inputs using a Qualtrics survey that's embedded right into that landing page. So it's a little bit more it's a little bit more static and not as like back and forth and open as collecting input in a Zoom meeting, but it's still public input, and it still allows people to engage in a friendly manner at their own pace. And then mixed method engagement is something that incorporates a little bit of all these different things that I've talked about, and then incorporating some of that old-fashioned in-person engagement. So we're not doing this right now, but eventually we will go back to engaging in person. But I strongly recommend that we learn these tools right now so we can utilize them on top of the regular in-person engagement that we will do in the future, because we are creating a culture right now, and people are going to start to expect this type of engagement. And I think if we lean into it and we learn in this process, we can continue to utilize these tools once we are engaging people back in the everyday world. One question I have for you all is, what are some digital engagement tools that you are using maybe in your own municipalities or in your own personal life that you find useful, that you want others to know about? So what are some tools that you are using or you have used? And I'll give that some time to populate in. Surveys. Maps, stories. Yeah, stories can go a long way. Storytelling is something that I think can be very powerful. Yeah, there's a lot of mapping resources and technologies. If you use ArcGIS, they have some public input engagement tools that you can work with. So I definitely encourage you to look into just using some like ArcGIS software that allows for public input. So surveys, yeah, classic method of collecting data from the public using digital engagement. So it might be through Qualtrics or Google Forms, or you might use SurveyMonkey. So those are probably the top 3 used platforms. So some of them are easier to create on the back end, some are more comprehensive and allows you to really manipulate. So definitely encourage you to look into those and experiment with them right now. And it's a good way just to collect some data. But some people are a little surveyed, they're over surveyed, and so there's a bit of there might be some pushback on you on that too. So something just to think about. And then, yeah, virtual open houses or virtual engagement interviews. Yeah, so using the phone is a method that I strongly encourage you. You might want to have some more, if you want to collect data from certain stakeholders in your community, this is a good time just to give people a call, check in with them on how they're doing in this situation, and then just have that conversation and capture that input from them using, old-fashioned phone call. Yeah, photos and videos. I just did some research into photo voice. It's something that it's a tool to collect data from the public. So people might have pictures that they've already collected from on their phones over time from their community. You might want to just have them share those photos using a tool like Facebook or Instagram, and that just allows people to share some input and share like how, reminisce a little bit about what was going on before this whole COVID-19 situation. And it's just positive engagement too that I don't think would hurt, and allow people to just be a little refreshed in this moment in time and create a little bit sense of community. And it also just builds that culture around digital engagement, which you probably are trying to do. So thank you for those who have populated this this little word cloud up with the tools that you're using. And I'm going to share some other tools that we are experimenting with at MAPC right now. And I'm also going to share some features that I encourage you to experiment with and think about incorporating into ways you are engaging people online. Icebreaker questions and activities. That's something that I did today, and Alex and Courtney also did at the beginning of this meeting. So asking questions that don't completely relate maybe to the general topic of the conversation or the agenda. It gets people feeling a little bit more comfortable, and it allows you for that more natural networking that people do day to day, face to face. So asking those questions, allowing people to answer those questions in the chats features that are built into these programs, or they might respond out loud or something by unmuting themselves, or having activities. People might not want to write everything out on a keyboard, or maybe they don't have access to a keyboard and they just have to use their thumbs. So that might be a little bit more difficult. So if you want to do like an activity and incorporate something like a poll or something like that, we strongly encourage you to look into that and experiment with that. Zoom has polling that's built right into it that you can build out for your Zoom calls beforehand, or you can build out a poll or an activity using software like PollEV. I strongly encourage you to share links beforehand so people can consume the content at their own pace and process that information going into the conversation. So you might want to do that through a landing page, through an email, but definitely encourage you to share those links beforehand. You also want to record the online event. It allows you to share that content with a larger group of audience who could not have attended that specific time presentation. So that's something that we encourage you or look for you to look into, but there's also some concerns around that and some legal issues to consider. So you definitely want to talk to your legal team in your municipalities, and you can also consult with MAPC. There is a requirement that here in Massachusetts that every person who is being recorded has to give consent to their recording. So that's just something that is a legal procedure. So just look into it and before moving forward with recording your online events. A lot of these software pieces, it's an opt-in piece, so that people can choose to share their video and choose to share their audio. But just be aware of that and give people the option to opt out by turning off the video and audio recording, or choosing to not participate at all if they don't want to be involved in something that is being recorded. Casual networking is a feature that we strongly encourage you to incorporate into your online experiences. It's something that happens in regular old public engagement experiences that we take for granted. So I definitely encourage you to think about ways to incorporate that into these digital experiences. That might be through the chat option, or people can arrive early to the meeting. Like today, a couple of people just logged in a little early, and you can have that conversation with folks over the chat, or by unmuting yourself and saying hello and checking in on other things that are not related to the agenda. So think about adding that into your outward facing public engagement activities.
Hey, Yolanda, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that the slides are still moving with.
Yeah, so I'm currently I'm still on the digital events features.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right, sorry.
Great. Yes, and there's some other options that you can look into. So you might want to just check who's in the room using demographic data that you might want to collect and have people share out. Alex and Courtney did that too today, just by asking people to share your affiliations and your name. But I strongly encourage you to think about some of the features that you see in front of you right now on this slide. And again, that's in the PDF. Some other items that we want you to think about is building a mobile-friendly experience. Many times we are creating these online experiences to be more built for using a computer, but right now I would say the majority of people who are engaging online are not engaging using a computer, but they're actually engaging using a phone. So you might want to build out a digital experience that allows people to participate using a phone. Zoom, you can download the Zoom app, or you can use the links that you can open them right into your phone browsers, or people can call in if they don't even have a smartphone and they can listen in on the call. So thinking about like, how can you do that? If you're creating a landing page, make sure the landing page can work both on a computer and on a mobile device. Creating content that is easy to consume on a phone is important too. So you might want to look into like creating infographics or using images or putting content on in meme form or something like that. Not all content needs to be more rigid and in a certain format, but you can make it so that it's easy for people to digest and consume the content in order to like be active participants of their community. And then accommodate for people with disabilities in regards to in regards to communication and engagement. So making sure the text is big enough on people's phones, making sure that images that are on phones have, on many software, you can like click on the image and add some data behind it, where if somebody has a visual impairment, that image can then be like a description of that image can be shared with somebody who has a visual impairment. So that's just something to think about in regards to accommodating people with disabilities that are using phones. And then you can also check to see if your digital experiences that you're building on, like if they work on phones really well, by using Google's mobile friendly testing tool. So that's something you can just Google, and you can learn more about that and test out your experiences. And then offline engagement, look into how can you continue to nurture people's participation in projects and plan outside of more formal meetings. That might be using Slack, convening people to have chats after a public meeting or an event, using Facebook groups or Facebook commenting section or chats. So there's like a thread that can continue after a specific event or opportunity. The old-fashioned email listservs and email chains, that is a conversation that can happen post an event. Twitter, Instagram hashtag, and Instagram hashtags. Those are ways to have conversations on social media about a specific topic outside of like a specific opportunity. So you can also create those for your projects. The YouTube comment section or Reddit board also allows people to have those conversations afterwards. Making engagement fun brings a lot of people to the table, and it keeps them there. Sometimes too, if your engagement is, you're not thinking about the fun elements, people are more likely to disengage and not participate. They have other things that, again, are asking for their attention right now. So, if it's something that you, after the workday, they could easily, be watching a Netflix series instead of your public participation project. So definitely think about how can you, engage people in your experiences. And there's some recommendations on this slide here. Gamifying the digital experiences, adding quizzes and surveys and polls, icebreakers and team builders, like I mentioned prior, using GIFs and stickers and emojis on, you as the user, but also, using tools that allow for that too. Maybe you can have a scavenger hunt on your landing page so that people can go all the way through the content, or there might be an Easter egg, which is like this little thing. Just by adding like little things to your landing page, people might be searching for those things, or they might find something fun that they weren't expecting, and that will continue to allow them to engage further, deeper into the content that you're sharing. You might also want to add a point system or prize to your engagement experience, just ways to keep people interested in gamifying the experience. And then sharing stories. Somebody mentioned that prior to. Stories can go a long way. So you don't always want to just like share a lot of content with people that is more stale and, just the rigid facts, but sharing some of the more qualitative pieces of the project that might be a specific story about something that's happened prior. That's something that I'm still working on, to be honest about, but it's something to keep in mind. And then keeping in mind that also time and place. Sometimes it has to be something that's a little bit more formal and doesn't include the games and the quiz or the fun pieces, just because that audience doesn't completely, it doesn't resonate with them, or it's not something that they want to participate in. So just reflect on your own audience and think about what would work for them and what they expect and how to move forward. One fun question I have for you all is, what's your favorite online platforms? And you can respond to this on Poll EV. So you either on the landing page, on the Poll EV webpage, or using the texting option. Just want to see what you all use the most. So Facebook and Instagram are high. Zoom right now is high. And if you don't use any, or if you don't really like any of them, you can choose none too. And then there's some other ones that might be available to you that you use right now that's not listed here. Great. Looks like Instagram is in the lead, and Facebook is right behind. All right, LinkedIn. No Twitter love, huh? And TikTok is something that is definitely with the younger generation is really active in right now. And specifically anybody who's under 20, I would say, is on TikTok and engaging on that social media platform. And it's like a video, these short video clips that are public, and they add music and interesting sounds to them. So if you're seeing those on Facebook or Instagram, most likely they're coming from TikTok. So a community of folks are creating it on that. Great. So it looks like Instagram is the winner today. So with this audience, at least that is the most active, and then Facebook right behind, and then Zoom, it has seen an increase during this time of social distancing too. Great. So let me see here. Slide frozen. Okay, so think about adding those human elements in those just fun pieces into your experiences. Let people know who you are, who's the face behind the projects. People want to see like these human elements connected to projects. Let them know if facts, fun facts and more formal facts about you. When people visit a landing page, make sure that information is up front instead of like hidden or like more behind the scenes, that they have to click into multiple different pages to know who are the people who are leading the charge on this specific project. And it's transparency, but it's also makes people comfortable with the whole process. Share your bios and information is something that is highly encouraged. If you have a guest speaker, encourage your guest speaker to share fun pieces about themselves, and not just like what people expect, but what are the things that they're thinking about in their personal lives. And then ask me anything, or open office hours are more informal digital experiences that you might want to think about incorporating at your in your municipalities. So prior, people were just visiting maybe your office, or they were just connecting with you over the phone, or they were doing impromptu visits. And during this time, that's a little harder to do. So I encourage you to think about how you can create these open office hours or ask me anything sessions in your own municipality, so people can still have that opportunity to do that right now. And you also want to think about how can you leverage different staff and people who are working alongside you to make sure these digital experiences are robust and can happen in an effective way. It's hard to do it yourself. Sometimes we have to do it ourselves, and that's when you, the master host, as you can see in this slide here, and you're wearing all the hats and you're managing, these these online engagement experiences by yourself. And hats off to you if you can do that. But if you can, we strongly encourage you to do what we're doing today with on this experience. Having a live facilitator, someone who is moving the agenda forward, checking for understanding and recapping information, a lot like what Alex and Courtney is doing. You might want to have a tech whiz behind the scene who's monitoring the mics, monitoring the cameras, turning them on and off, maybe troubleshooting issues with people over chat or checking in with people on a phone or something like that. If they are, they can't get that specific piece of technology to work, they can just give that person a call and help make sure that they can help that person participate. You might have a chat coordinator who's not focused on the tech stuff, but just engaging people, sharing links and collecting questions and clarifying ideas. Something similar to what Emily is doing in the chat section today. And then you might have a content expert, someone who's free from thinking about some of the back end stuff and free from moving the agenda or talking about the whole project, but is just honed in on one specific element of content. And that person today is me in some ways. So think about those roles, but think about barriers too. We strongly encourage you to think about how to mitigate and address barriers. Long learning curves are unfortunately a big piece for using a lot of these technological tools. Some people can pick them up and they are used to learning technology really quick, but I would say a large portion of our population needs to go through a longer learning curve in order to use these digital engagement tools. And this COVID-19 situation is forcing a lot of individuals to do that, unfortunately. But we are gonna go through it, and I think a lot of people are going to be on the other end. Computer only is definitely something I would strongly discourage. Think about building digital experiences that can be utilized in multiple different, using multiple different devices, so computers, tablets, or smartphones, and maybe not even using technology at all, but that information can still be gathered using using cable access TV, or they can get it through a phone call or something like that. Make sure that your content is not behind a paywall or requires a password. Sometimes we have to make it so that it requires a password, but that is a barrier that you have to think about in regards to building your digital experiences. Many times when there's a paywall or password, some people will just tune out and not participate. Requiring new hardware, stay away from that. So people don't want to make that investment just to participate in an engagement experience. So if it requires their computer to have a lot of memory or they need a lot of bandwidth, most likely they're not going to participate. Also, if they have to do an upgrade to software on their computers before participating, that's just time that you're most likely losing for them to participate, or it's a barrier. And then if they have to create an account, most likely that will also impact engagement. Or if they are worried about security issues like Zoom bombing right now, or if it requires them to share a lot of their own personal data in order to participate, that's a barrier to your engagement. So try to mitigate any of those as possible. There are some ways to configure your Zoom calls so that it doesn't, it deters Zoom bombing, and we would love to share some of those out with you too. And I can share something that Alex and Courtney can send in an email. And then keep in mind equity in regards to your digital experiences. You want to make sure that maybe you have resources that are in multiple different languages. If your municipalities have a large number of folks who speak different languages, think about how you can connect to an organization that provides interpretation or provides translation to help you build out those resources or to build online engagement experiences that are interpreted. You also might want to think about having people, just encouraging people to participate in their own language, and that they can do that in the chat section, and information in those comments can be translated later on, or they can comment on a survey in their own language. So encourage that. Is something that I think is important and maybe not top of mind right now, but if we are trying to build these equitable digital experiences, it's important. And then give people time to read and consume the content. Not everyone is a really quick reader, and if we just we want to make sure that our projects keep in mind, like, different cognitive abilities. So make sure that the information is not using a lot of jargon. If you are putting information on a landing page, and it's not using like high level vocabulary. So make sure it's like something that if somebody can read a newspaper, they should be able to read your content that you're sharing. And then it shouldn't take like a lot of work to navigate to find the information on your resource. And again, not everyone's using the computer, so try to stay away from like requiring people to use a keyboard to participate in your projects, or just thinking about how they can participate in other ways that might not require a keyboard. Provide captions if possible. It's something that Zoom has the capacity to do. You just have to assign someone who is listening in on the call and typing that information in, so that like there's a caption to what that person is saying. And there's some other new video conferencing features that are being built out right now, and that some companies are experimenting with, which uses machine learning to just turn your words right into a caption. So that might be something for you to look into. And then people might see and hear content differently. So you want to make sure that it's easy to understand content. And you also want to make it easy for people to see and hear that content. So it shouldn't require them to go through like multiple different steps to access that stuff. And then also make sure that you're using non-web content distribution channels. So that might be cable access TV, making phone calls. I definitely encourage you to just connect to our media organizations who are still sending out newspapers or still connecting with their audiences. So for your projects, definitely connect to those with those avenues too. And then before I end this, I definitely want to just share some different digital tools with you all. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'll just highlight 2 or 3. If you love just like using sticky notes or whiteboards in your office, and you want to go back to like having people brainstorming together, I definitely encourage you to look into Miro. It's a collaborative tool to allow people to use sticky notes. It might not be something that you're doing with a large audience of the public, but your own team, if you just want to get people to brainstorm on a specific piece, look into using Miro to like have these sticky notes experiences. If you want to create a video where your face is going through a presentation, so it's like your face in a little box or in a little circle, and there's a presentation. Loom is a tool that you can use to create these video experiences and presentations that you can share on YouTube or share on your landing page, where it adds you into the presentation and not just a presentation alone. And then online open houses are something that a lot of you are experimenting with right now, that that you might be looking into, and we encourage you to experiment with that. It's basically an opportunity and a reframing of like what is an open house. So it's, people are over surveyed right now, but if you design your surveys in a way where people can go into the content at their own pace and just like consume the content and then give their input, it could be an online version of the in-person open house. So it's just really how you design it on the back end to make sure people are comfortable with sharing and taking part in the process. So that's all I have for you in regards to, like, sorry, I did share a lot with you today in regards to some of the content that I want to make sure you have to engage your folks. But I'd love to take questions. You can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can add it in the comment section of the Zoom chat.
Yolanda, I'm gonna actually address some of the questions that I've heard. Hello, can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up. All right, great. While people maybe get some questions together. So Danielle, at the beginning, you were talking about people that could not access the technology. I think Yolanda's point on how many staffers it takes when you actually do have your meeting, and having someone sort of identified as the technology person. So perhaps you could address who that is at the start of the meeting. That way that person could get a phone call and maybe more hands-on help. We also suggest, if you have a 30 minutes before the meeting starts, maybe some people can get on that know or want to test out their technology. That way you have this period where people can kind of go on and test and get comfortable, especially to Margaret's point. You know, if there's anything that they need to do that's interactive, maybe having a testing time before the meeting starts. Some other things too that we've been doing, I think.
Emily, you're frozen.
Someone had, oh.
Or I'm frozen.
Am I frozen?
I think you're okay, Emily. Yolanda.
I think Yolanda was frozen for a second. I think there was a question on what happens when there's an inability to interact with the screen share. So in Dedham, what we did is we actually had a live Facebook feed. You can do this with YouTube as well. So where you're taking this Zoom presentation and you're putting in a place that's a little bit more static so people can watch it like a video. They may not be able to interact with it, but at least they can kind of continue and watch it in a different location. The other things that we've done is shared out a PDF in advance, or we've asked people to close out any other windows that they have, you know, close out anything on their computer that might be not allowing them to see the presentation. I think there was a question about public meeting law. So we'll have to look at that, but I'm sort of wondering, is it like the virtual whisper, you know, person to the side? Like if you're in a meeting and someone's sort of whispering and talking to each other. So Margaret, I'll look into that with our legal counsel.
I also just wanted to note that I think it's okay to have like a private chat, but just doing it and knowing that that's still subject to public law. All right. Does anyone else have any additional questions, comments?
I have one. It's a little bit, it's pretty much on topic, but not quite. In Wedham, I don't know if any other communities have come up against it, but the MS4 permit, we have to update our bylaws, our stormwater regulations, and I'm doing it through the planning board's rules and regulations rather than through a new bylaw. And I have to have a public hearing to do that. So I'm just not sure if any other communities have looked at that and if the legislation has bumped out the deadline for that, because it's due by the end of June in order to be in compliance with our MS4 permit. I wonder if any other communities have had that issue, or if we think I can push it out. But the plan right now is to have that public meeting on our May 14th planning board meeting, which I'm assuming will still be virtual, but I'm not sure. You know, we don't get a huge amount of people for that anyway, but we do need to have a public hearing for it.
Sorry for the question. I missed it. I got kicked out, unfortunately. But
Margaret, I've definitely heard from municipalities talking about not only the MS4, but other permit situations.
Yeah.
So I think it's something to flag, and we can send it to Government Affairs, Leah and Diego, as I had mentioned, because what we're trying to keep track of are what are some impediments to some of your processes. You know, what are some things that we can put in that municipal bill? If there's some forgiveness that can happen. But then the other thing that we're trying to do is MAPC community engagement staff and other sub-regional staff, we're trying to work with municipalities to help you figure out how you can still do the engagement and meet the requirements.
Okay.
So honestly, you know, I just can't picture, I just want to sort of leave you with, I can't picture us getting back together for a while. We don't really know when that's going to be. And so we really want to position you and your staff with, how do we think about this differently? How can we work forward, meet, you know, timelines and do it in a very thoughtful way that's sensitive to everyone's needs. So something to think about.
Thank you.
I don't know if there was some other questions that were asked, but feel free to ask them now again, or Emily, you can ask any questions. I've unfortunately got kicked out, so that's some technical issues that you might deal with Zoom. Sometimes it will just break down on you. So it's good to have multiple people on a call to support you, like Emily and Alex and Courtney are doing today. And you also will lose the chat history if you got kicked out and you have to come back into a call. So I can't see some of the prior questions that were asked. So Emily, feel free to let me know if there are some questions in the chat.
Well, I tried to address the ones that I saw. I think we have 2 minutes left. So if anyone wants to leave us with one last comment or one last question, please do. And also any notes from this meeting, anything that we said we would share, we'll definitely share in a follow-up email with Courtney and Alex. Thank you for having us. Again, if you want to do one last comment or question, or we could also talk offline.
Yeah, I just want to thank Yolanda and Emily. I know we're getting close to end time, but I also wanted to ask for any plus deltas that could be dropped into the chat function. What did you like about the today's presentation and the meeting overall? What are some ways that we can improve with this format? We just want to thank everyone for taking the time out to be present, to be here, and to engage.
Thanks, Courtney. I'll echo your comments. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. And yeah, please drop us a plus delta in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I just want to make a quick plug for a webinar we have coming up tomorrow about dealing with food security in the COVID-19 crisis. So I'll email out a link to that if you're interested in attending. I believe it's Friday at 2:30. And then we have another one coming up on the topic of COVID-19 and layoffs, looking at unemployment rates and people's ability to afford housing. And it'll be a summary of some of MAPC's research on that. So we'll send out links to that to you all after this meeting. But thanks again for attending.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Stay safe. Have a great day.